What's up guys, and welcome to Wicked Pixels. This is part number 2 of the Learn to Slay series, where we're going to talk you through Slay the Spire 2 from the ground up. We're going to basically teach you the mechanics of the game so that you can understand the process of making better decisions and hopefully have more success in your runs as you climb the Ascension ranks. If you haven't checked out the first video, go and have a quick look at it now, link in the description below, and once you've done that, pop back so that we can look at the next part of the run, which is going to be assessing the map and plotting the correct path. So one of the first things to consider is what Neo option we had available to us and what we've taken. So in this case, we've actually taken the rare card and we managed to hit Brand, which is a 0 cost gold card. It's lose 1 HP, exhaust 1 card and gain 1 strength. This is actually a really strong card for a number of reasons. So first of all, it does have a slight downside, which is losing 1 HP, but bear in mind we can recoup our health pretty easily with Burning Blood as the Ironclad. In case of cards that actually give you benefits from losing health, this is also going to activate those for 0 cost, so we can always play this. We also have exhaust 1 card. Generally this is a really positive thing because we can remove either weaker cards that we have in our hand, and it means we won't hit them again on the next hand, and then we can also leverage a lot of different exhaust effects for Ironclad, where we have some builds that lean into exhaust as a mechanic. We also have gain 1 strength, which is just generally a really positive effect because it's going to increase the damage of our strikes and it's going to make sure that we kill enemies quicker and hopefully lose less damage in the process. So yeah, we are going to take some small amount of damage as we're using this, but that is outweighed by the increase in strength, speeding up the battle, and also having the utility of exhausting cards as well. So let's have a look at the map. Generally speaking, we have between 2 and 4 paths from the start of the map. Just in case you weren't aware, we do have a legend which shows you what all the nodes are called, and if just by highlighting one of these, it does show each type up at a time. So if you're trying to look for or plot a path to maybe go for as many events as you can, then we can easily see this is where the events are, and it's just much easier to spot and sort of plot a course. Now we want to look at a couple of things before we set off. First of all, we almost always want to go through merchants. Merchants generally going to give us options for building, and it also has that all-important card removal. In some cases, when we've got a lot of gold to spare, we may even look to buy a couple of potions if we know there's an upcoming elite fight. So merchants are really, really useful and probably one of the most valuable in terms of actually making a successful build. So we also need to consider how much gold we've actually got and how much we're going to have, so sort of thinking ahead to when we actually hit those merchants. Now we could take the right-hand path here, thinking about the merchants. We're almost always going to hit a merchant within the first 2 or 3 nodes on most occasions when we start the game, but we've only got 99 gold, and we're going to hit one fight and get a small amount of gold here, and we may get lucky and get some more gold here, but we're kind of chancing it to see if we're actually going to have enough gold to do anything worthwhile. Now we may just set off to that node to try and remove a card straight away, but probably on this occasion we're going to think more about where the merchants are further up the map. So you usually have one nearer the end. So in this case, on the left hand lane, we're going to have more gold when we hit that, and therefore it's going to be more useful to us. Going down the left hand lane means we're going to take, if we want to go through this merchant here, we're going to take 3 normal fights, which will net us a little bit of gold again. We could do a card removal here, and then what we're going to want to do is have access to a merchant when we're higher up at the end of the map, and hopefully we've accrued a lot more gold from events and boss fights and things like that. So I would say in this case I'm probably going to lean towards the left hand lane, just because I know that merchant is going to be quite near the end. The other thing to consider, and certainly in the lower Ascension ranks, is how many elite fights there are. Because we're on lower Ascension ranks, the elite fights aren't quite as difficult as they will be moving forward. So we can look a little bit, lean a little bit into farming elites. So killing an elite, the reason why we want to do that is because we're going to give us a relic, and generally the relics are quite decent, and they're potentially going to be things that we can build around or that are going to help us be successful. So the more relics we can get from elites, then obviously that's going to snowball into being able to kill more elites, and hopefully then we can farm more relics. That said, it's always important to remember that if you're low on health and you take on an elite fight, you're probably going to get destroyed unless you've got a really efficient build that's doing the thing it needs to do. So we've got to be very careful. Don't just aim for as many elites as you can. You've got to plan ahead, think about actually where you're going to get some heals from. Am I going to be prepared to fight those elites? And once you get a little bit of game knowledge, you will have an idea about where each elite pops up on each different map. So for example, we know that in the first map there is a statue boss, which after the first 2 turns is going to start doing 25 damage a turn. So if I've got a really aggressive build that can deal with that very quickly, that's great. But if I'm still not quite there in terms of my build, I don't want to be bumping into that boss when I'm on low health if I've not got a build that can deal with it. So being able to generate 25 block in a turn quite early is very, very difficult, and therefore I'm looking at a build that's going to be quite aggressive, or is that's able to maybe leverage some potions or something to kill that boss. So it's always important to remember what I've got upcoming, and in some cases it might be best to actually avoid elites altogether if you know that you're low on health. So what I tend to do is have a look at where the elites are, and let's see where we can hit the most of them. So we at the moment we've got one on the left, one on the right. We know we're leaning towards the left side anyway. We could feasibly, looking at this, if we take this one here, we could go farming elites, and we could actually hit 4 in this run. So that's a very brave way to do it, and that would rely on us, I think, hitting a few absolutely quality cards, maybe in the shop and maybe here. If we do have a couple of good cards, maybe we could get through these. We could heal at the rest site here, and then we'd be good to take on a few more elites. We're going to have an elite fight here, followed by a normal fight, and then another elite fight. Now that's dangerous. Even if we've got a good build, there's a good chance we're going to be losing quite a lot of health in these fights. So if we go for that, we are essentially running the razor's edge here a little bit. So a chance in the fact that we're going to have a good fight against these elites, and our build's going to stand up well, we're not going to lose too much health, and we're going to be ready for the next one. So I think this is a trap. I think going for those elites as it stands right now, we're probably going to get ourselves in a lot of trouble, and then what we'll be looking to do is just survive until the end of the run on the first floor. So for me, probably avoid it. If I've got a really strong build coming out the gate and I feel like I can take it on, then obviously power your way through there however you can, get lots of relics, and then hopefully be really set up for the next floor. In this case, we're going to give those a miss. I think that's a little bit too much for us to go for. What we're going to do is we're going to set off down the left, and we're going to plan to go through the merchant. Another thing to remember is how many rest sites we've got, because obviously that's our main source of healing. It's also another place you can upgrade cards quite easily if you're already full on health, which often in the first few, I'd say certainly the bottom section of the map, in the lower ascension ranks, we will probably be upgrading cards. So looking for as many of these as we can is also going to be quite helpful. In this case, they're quite spread out. There's one in each lane. Moving up here, actually going around this bit, we're actually going to get 2 in a row, and there's an elite right in the middle, so it means we're going to get a heal if we need it. We're going to fight that elite, and then if we've lost loads of health, we've got the opportunity to heal back to full. So that's going to be a really good option for us here. We're then going to hit the merchant as well. The only problem with going this route is that we're probably going to miss quite a lot of the relics from killing the elites. So that gives us the option of going down the left side, taking some normal fights, trying to get some cards, doing an upgrade, another few normal fights. So we're going to have lots of normal cards coming down here, which will give us a bit of a chance to gain some good cards, but it might not pan out. We've then got an elite fight, and we could potentially get a heal if we need it before this one. So there's a few different ways. You've got to kind of play with these ideas in your head and see which one do I think is going to be the best option for me. And as it stands at the moment, we're just starting the game, and don't forget we have got this gold card, but this isn't in itself going to end the game quickly for us. This is just a really good utility that can work with lots of builds. It's going to give us a little bonus to our damage, and it's also going to take a little bit of health off us. So we're still needing other cards to make this work effectively, and that's something we've got to consider. If I had a really strong attack card, like a gold card that was ready to just wipe the floor with some elites early on, I might be going down the path of getting 4 elites in a row, but as it stands, I don't feel like that's where we are. So my plan here is really to look at some normal enemies, maybe get a couple of card choices out of there, hopefully start making a build, hit the shop, remove a card if there's nothing good for us, and then we're going to look to upgrade as we come potentially round here, and maybe go this way, get some more upgrades, and get the elite fight on the way up. Then hopefully by the time we get up here, we're going to have a lot of gold to spend, and we're going to hopefully get some good things from there. I guess one thing we've not talked about yet is the events. So generally speaking, events are going to give us something good. That's not always the case. Obviously there are negative effects from the events. There are some events that can leave us with cards in our deck that we don't want, or they can remove cards that we need. It can usually cost us health or reduce our max health, but those tend to lead to sort of positive rewards, so they're usually good to go through events. The other thing I see events as being is a way to avoid certain fights, because 9 times out of 10 you don't end up having to fight anything in an event. So it's a way to kind of navigate around elites when you're low on health, or you feel like you're not going to be able to deal with that particular elite that's in that area. and also in higher ascension modes it's really good for dealing with getting around certain enemies that you know are going to appear in this section of the map. So enemies early on are, you know, they're, I would say, formalities in some cases, but as you hit higher ascension ranks, they almost become like mini bosses in and of themselves, and you've got to be prepared for that. So you tend to use the events as a way of kind of navigating around to get some health before you take on more fights and things like that. So events are really useful. I wouldn't recommend, just as a little tip, don't just go through loads of events early on, because you're not going to get any card drops potentially. You may get, what you don't want to do is get halfway up the map and not have any decent cards in your hand to actually win the fights with. So you are going to have to focus on normal enemies early just to get some cards drop in hopefully, and then we can start avoiding those and go for events and elites as we move up higher through the map. So with that in mind, lots of different options. As we said before, there's no bad options, no bad choices. There is an element of randomness here, so you could take the worst possible path and it could pan out beautifully for you, and equally you could go down the best possible path and it could be absolutely terrible. So we're just going to try and focus on what's our character doing, what's our build, what we're looking for in terms of the cards. Have we got loads of gold to spend? Then I'm going to look for the merchants. Am I needing to farm elites because I've got a relic that's going to give me a bonus if I do that, like a black star or the sword that you need to slay 5 elites to make that activate. So there's lots of other sort of mini side quests that you might need to be doing on the way through. But generally speaking, I'm looking to go through as many rest sites as I can. I'm going to try and time my trips through the merchant whenever I think I'm going to have enough gold to do so, and I'm also going to target as many elites as I feel comfortable with in this particular point in the run. Now normally I would be looking to do at least 2 or 3 elites, but in this case I think, given the fact that I want to go to the merchant first, I'm going to avoid this left lane, and then I'm going to see how this goes. If I get something amazing and it really sets my build off, I might decide to change direction and go up here. So try and give yourself some options in terms of, if this happens then maybe I go that way, and if it doesn't then maybe I go this way. So let's give that a go and let's see where it gets us. Alright, so we just hit the shop after killing a few enemies. This is how our deck is currently looking. We managed to pick up a couple of, and wouldn't normally have picked up this many cards by the way in a run, but we managed to get a couple of things that synergize. Now Iron Wave drop was the first one. That's a really good all-round card that works in most builds. It gives you damage and blocks. It's a really excellent card to upgrade early. Breakthrough, leaning into the losing HP build that I think we're possibly looking at now. Deal 9 damage to all enemies, and the fact that we're going to be gaining strength, this is going to scale pretty well, and it's going to help feed into any other cards that give us a bonus for losing HP. And very fortunately we bumped into a Rupture. Whenever you lose HP on your turn, gain 1 strength. So already we've got the basis of a build now. We're going to have Brand giving us a little bit of HP loss. We're going to have Breakthrough giving us a little bit of HP loss. And every time we do that, we're going to be getting 1 strength. So our strength is going to build up incredibly quickly, and we're going to be able to slap bosses pretty fast. So let's just have a look at what's in the shop and see if there's anything helpful for us. We've hit Stampede, which is at the end of your turn, 1 random attack in your hand is played against a random enemy. The reason why this is really strong is that it allows us, once we've played the power, to be able to focus on blocking with our scaling strength from the abilities that we've got in our deck already, and we're then going to be able to just play out cards essentially for free at the end of the turn. We've also got the option here of lose 2 HP and gain 16 block. This is a really strong basic shield card that's going to keep us in the game against bosses later, and it scales exceptionally well. The one thing I'm slightly concerned about here is that we've now got 2 cards that make us lose HP, so adding a third could be a little bit, possibly a little bit dangerous, but I think I'm going to give this a go anyway. So we're going to go for Stampede and we're going to go for Blood Wall. Unfortunately we haven't quite got enough to pay for the card removal, so we're now currently sitting at 16 cards, which is not great. So now we really need to focus on getting some cards out of our hand. We're not feeling super prepared to take on lots of elites here, because we are going to be taking lots of HP damage from ourselves. That said, I think we're going to do it anyway just to take the risk. So sometimes you've got to make a decision. You've got to think, can I gamble here? Is it going to pay off? If it is, I'm going to be sitting pretty with potentially 4 relics. I've got a chance to heal here. I also have a chance to, do I have a chance to deviate off from the path if I decide it's not working? We could still get an elite up here, some more upgrades potentially. I think just given how little gold we've got, by the time we get up here, I'm not sure we're going to have loads of gold to spare. So I'm not feeling like the merchant is actually feeling like a great idea since I've just spent most of that gold. So instead what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change my plan and I'm going to go down the right hand side. Let's see how it goes. So here we are at the end of the gauntlet. We managed to get through 3 of the elites, and then we got just before the 4th one. It was like I was nearly dead, had to take the normal fight and then hit the rest icon and then got a bit of health back. So we're not looking great coming into this boss fight, but we do have a few relics to show for it. So we managed to hit Gremlin Horn. We managed to find a strike damage which upgrades our strike damage, which is all right at the moment because we've still got quite a few strikes in here. This one's going to be helpful. So at the start of the boss combat, upgrade 3 random cards in your draw pile for the rest of the combat, so that's really useful. And then we've also got Blood Vial giving us a little bit of health back as we progress, which we're going to need for now as well. We do also get the option now with a prayer wheel of having 2 sets of free cards for each normal fight, and that's going to really help us find the cards that we need. I have unfortunately increased the size of my deck quite a lot here, which is not intentional. I took a few gambles. I had to take an injury because the other option would have basically put me in the danger zone for health, so I had to take that on as well. We did hit Iron Waves, which are really useful universal cards, so took them, and I actually took a shrug off just going into the last elite fight because I felt like our defense was quite lacking. So having that 8 block and knowing that we had a pyre, that's going to give us extra energy. So these ended up actually being really useful picks. I wouldn't normally have just added when considering I already had a build kind of on the way. If we take the normal strikes and normal defends out, we've actually got a reasonably good looking build. It's just we ran our health far too low. So the idea of this build here is that we get pyre off and we get stampede off, we get rupture off. So we're going to need something that's going to help us to cast these powers early on. Once we've done that, we're then looking at using brand and some blood wall to keep us alive, but also feeding into our extra strength, which is then going to power up our abilities. So our abilities at the moment, Iron Wave is not the biggest damaging ability, but it does give us extra block and keeps us in the fight. We've got 2 of those. We've got Bash to help us with damage, and then the idea is we basically just play defensively and Stampede will do all the work while we pump our health up using our abilities. The Breakthrough is also really good for AoE because it's always good to have an ability that can hit multiple targets, as you'll find in certain fights. So we've kind of covered most of our bases. The only difficulty we've really got here is that we're losing quite a lot of health throughout the fight. So if we're, for example, using Blood Wall a couple of times, that's going to be 4 health. We're definitely going to be using this one, and we're definitely going to be using Brand. So we're going to be taking at least kind of 6 to 8 damage a fight if we're lucky, and then we potentially might be healing that back, but that doesn't account for any damage that we're going to take from the actual enemies. So as it stands, we've got a decent build. It definitely needs some work, but it functions. We just need to survive the boss fight. So let's have a little look and see how it goes. Alright, so we've got an upgraded pyre, that's going to be really useful, and we've actually hit 2 of our powers straight away, so this is a really good start. We have got a few potions in our pocket, so we've got skill potion and fortifier, so if we do get in any danger where it looks like we're about to drop, we can easily survive the turn. So this guy, he's just basically got plating, so every turn he's going to get a big chunk of shield come back on, but every time we hit him that's going to reduce. So we're just going to try and get rid of some of these normal strikes. We need Blood Wall, and we need the, what's it called, Iron Wave, sorry, for the blocking. So I guess the only thing with this boss is it does hit quite hard, but we've got quite a lot of things to deal with now, and we're relying on, once we get this pyre off. Right, this is where we're going to be getting hit pretty hard, so it might be time to drop in a skill potion. Let's go for Rage, because that's going to help us when we start doing it. Get us a few extra blocks on. We take a decent chunk of damage, but we should still be looking good. So by the time we get to sort of the scary amount of health, we're actually going to be pumped up with the health, so we're going to be doing a lot of damage to the boss. So we're not too worried. Let's go for... We get rid of our normal block and we focus on attack because we want to end this one reasonably quickly. Should have done the other one first to get the extra strength off. So we've got no attack coming in now, so we can put some vulnerable on and we can now really start hurting the boss. Probably 1 or 2 more turns and we should be good. I've got a Blood Wall, which is, again, it's a really strong card, going to help us survive these big attacks. It's also going to pump up our damage, so we get more strength to hurt the boss, and we've also got that extra, so that's worked out really nicely. At 61 health, probably a couple more attacks from us and we should be good. It looks like we're going to have to go defensive here, so it's not a good start. We've also got a dexterity reduction from this boss as well, but we've still got the potion in hand, so we should be okay. It's not going to take us anywhere near lethal, so we're absolutely fine. Again, I'm I'm making mistakes here. I should have played the damage myself on for the extra strength, but that's absolutely fine. And we made it through because we're on low ascension rank. We're going to get our health back on most of it, and we're all good there. We've also got the option of getting obviously our boss cards as well. Now we've already got a pyre in the deck. I think having another one is just going to be absolutely overkill, so there's no use for that really. Thrash is a really good attack card that will synergize with having large damage attacks, which we don't really have in this build, so that's not really going to be much use to us. We've also got 1-2 punch, which makes sure that we get to attack twice with our abilities, so that can be really useful. But at the moment, because we've got so many cards in our deck, I really don't feel like we need to kind of muddy it up anymore by adding more cards, so we're actually going to skip these. Okay guys, so that just about wraps up our second part of the Learn to Slay series, where we've talked you through how to make the decisions at the beginning with Neo, and then using that info to plot your course through the first layer of the dungeon. Make sure you stay flexible, make sure you don't stick rigidly to your first plan, because things change all the time. You might take more damage than you expected, you might end up with a lot of gold that you need to spend, you may end up with a quest item that sets you on a path to try and kill a lot of elites, for example, and things like that. So things to consider: how much gold do I have? How much health do I have left? Do I know that there's a difficult fight in this area that I need to avoid with my particular build? These are all things you should be thinking about. Make sure you plan to go for as many rest sites as you can to upgrade your cards, and hopefully by the time you get to the boss you do have enough health and a decent build that will manage to tank your way through that. Stay tuned for part 3, where I'm going to talk you through the second layer of the dungeon, more decisions to make, more bosses to kill, and more loot to grab. So stay tuned guys, and let's get ready to slay more of the Spire together in part 3 coming up very soon. Take care.